Hey guys, Jeff Black again, programmer photographer out of Tampa, Florida, welcoming you back to howtoshootmodels.com. What we've been talking about so far is exposure in your camera, how to meter it, how to get it, and how to make sure it's accurate. I probably should have taken a step back and said, where do you begin with exposure? Well, there's a couple of different ways. The most cost-effective or cheapest way you can do it is literally through the camera. This is called through the camera metering. And what you would do in this scenario is, let's say I've got a subject, she's outside, I've got sun everywhere, I've got ambient light. Basically what I would do is I'd get my camera, whatever lens I'm using, I would zoom in as tight as I possibly could on my subject's face. And then I would look in the camera. There's going to be a scale in there. The scale, it's a sliding scale from left to right. But in the middle of that scale, that's what the camera is going to assume a proper exposure is going to be. So for me, as I've talked in some of my other videos, I like to shoot at f2.8. So I always shoot on manual. I lock my camera into 2.8. I get my subject, I zoom in nice and tight on her face. And then basically all that I have to do is adjust my shutter speed accordingly and watch that line in the camera. If I'm real far to the left, it means it's underexposed. If I'm real far to the right, I'm overexposed. But as I start dialing down or dialing up my shutter speed, you're going to see that line in the camera move, and ideally you want to get it set right in the center. Now, that's all well and good, and generally that's going to work out pretty okay for you. It's not an exact science, and the reason it wouldn't be, let me explain. First and foremost, when we're taking a picture of our model, we want to ensure the exposure of the face. That's going to be the most important place that we can, direct our exposure to being. We don't care so much about the body as we do the face. So we're gonna zoom in for the face. And why this is all well and good is, okay, so, we're maintaining our rules and our laws of like our photography, we're exposing them properly for the face. Well, here's the catch-22 to this. If I had a real black model and I zoomed in on her face and got my meter reading and started taking the pictures, that's okay. But now if I bring in a real pasty model and do the exact same thing, I'm gonna get two completely different readings. Now, the camera was doing its best to figure out what the proper exposures should be for the picture, but I'm just throwing that, monkey wrench into the equation. So what's the way to work around that? Well, in a pinch, you can use this, through the camera metering, but there's a much more effective form of metering, and that is with a Greycard. This Greycard here, it's a piece of cardboard actually. It's 8.5 by 11, size of a standard sheet of paper. But most people know Greycards for setting the white balance of their camera. But you can also use the Greycard to ensure you get perfect exposure every time. And these puppies don't cost a whole lot. There's a price tag on this. It was $5.95. But basically what you do with this is, same scenario, got my model outside in the ambient light, or I'm using hot lights. And what I'll do is I'll ask my model to hold this directly up to her face. And you can probably explain to her why you're doing it, because she might feel a little bit foolish going like this. But you don't want to have her hold it here on her chest or to the side of her face. We need to expose properly for her face. That's going to be the most important thing that you can do as far as your exposure is concerned. Aim for the face. So what you want to do is have her hold this directly in front of her face, and now what you're going to do is you're going to zoom in with your camera and you're going to fill your lens with the Greycard. Now, I caution you, don't stand in the way, don't shadow this puppy. You need to measure exactly what's reflecting off this card. Now, the camera meters for 18% gray. That's what it's basing everything on. This card is 18% gray, so there's no fooling in the camera. So what you'll get generally is a perfect exposure every time. If your model is a little bit darker, you may have to increase your f-stop, maybe a half stop or a full stop. And if she's real pasty white, You may have to decrease it a half stop. But as a general rule of thumb, and if you were shooting raw, where you can actually take the pictures into Photoshop and adjust the exposure, this is going to be as close as you possibly can get for the least amount of money. The next section we'll get into light meters, but you know, light meters are $200, $300, $400. So for $5.95, I highly recommend you keep one of these in your bag at all time. It's never gonna lie to you. I've used these things for years. I wouldn't leave home without it. So take my advice, pick one of these up, $6. It's gonna make you very, very happy in the long run.